Hello all, this is me again. It is more or less my sad and somewhat hilarious duty to do the disclosure project. We now get to discuss the previous 20 years of war with the aliens. Let's start with what we all know. Back in the, roughly speaking, 1970s or so, the US started this little laughable agency with the goal of contacting aliens. Now, they took it really seriously for a while until somebody who wasn't a nerd explained to them that according to our way of mathematics, every woman is the alien and every man is the human. After the US got this to its head, they scrapped the whole project in essentially silence, and everybody who talks about aliens is now considered a nerd. Nerd! Now, the problem with this is quite simple. Health hath no fury like a mutant scorned. The problem is that most of the women of this planet eventually go insane because we're, as the humans of this planet, are just that stupid. And eventually they get stupid enough that the women start essentially tearing parts of themselves and throwing it at the men. Now, the thing is that after you get a sufficiently large number of women in one place, and you get them sufficiently angry, they will not be humans when they get you. Let's start with that. Now, somewhere in the, if I'm not entirely mistaken, early 19-ish, I don't know, maybe in 1992, 1995, when we figured out the Human Genome Project, we figured out that, yes, we're all animals. That's what the Human Genome Project says. We have a night side and we have a day side. On our night side, we're animals, and you can take your night side dream self and walk it next to your waking self. That's called a muton. That's like one of the first aliens we ran across. This is back in XCOM 1. We essentially won that war since we ended slavery. And it can be debated if it's a victory, but let's just say it's a victory and move on. And agree that the war was ended when we, as in humans, got to Mars, and we found that the women, that's to say the aliens, or all of the previous cycles of life put together, had not figured out how to get from Mars to the next point of their evolution. They hadn't figured out why they would go from Mars to someplace else. They always thought that when the sun expands, they are going to just, you know, be on Mars, and it's eventually going to thaw, and then they're going to be there and go like, yay, for 100 million years, and then the whole system's going to be boom, and then they go to the next place. That's not how physics works. The reality is that the sun will exist for as long as there's time in the universe. As long as the universe itself exists, the sun will exist. That's because when the sun expands, it will start sucking in more meteorites, and this will power the solar fusion. And all the planets that are now outside of the solar envelope will be inside the sun, but they will not be consumed. They will simply turn into molten balls of, you know, magnetic lava, essentially. It's going to be too magnetic for the sun to entirely consume it. And during this phase, they're going to suck up all these stray magnetic particles onto the planet's surface, eventually cooling the center of the sun. This will cause the sun to shrink again, and all the other planets are going to be visible again. So the thing is that the aliens of that cycle hadn't realized that this was going to happen. So by the time that we got to Mars, we figured out that, hey, these guys are actually just waiting for something that will never happen. The sun will never explode because it doesn't have the mass. It may explode in hundreds of trillions of years, but it won't explode in a few million or a few billion years. It will explode after the whole galaxy becomes something that we can't even recognize anymore. So the logical step is to go to the meteorite belt and start forming a planet there. This is what the, you know, current sci-fi is talking about. So when we got to Mars, we found the alien civilization there, and they tried to convince us that we should all just move to Mars and let Earth be destroyed because Mars is going to be safe and Earth isn't going to be safe and blah 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 blah. We didn't buy them, we killed them. So that was the first contact war. I was there. I was about 5 when it began. I was about 13 when it ended. I still have the historical recreation on my computer and I'm playing through it every couple of months to see if something new has happened. Nothing's happened yet, but you know, that's life. And the second contact war was when the women, that is to say the aliens, got pissed off at us because this cycle is smarter than all the previous cycles put together. That's really pissing them off. So they decided to combine all of the previous cycles' bioenergy, or what you would call, you know, money, to one point and try to kill us. This worked on the dinosaurs. It didn't work on us. So they spent a lot of their effort trying to essentially flood the planet, and it didn't go that well for them because, as you can probably guess, the Ice Age kind of put a stop to that whole discussion. So I don't know. That was their plan. Their plan was to essentially use the same thing that they used to, you know, kill the dinosaurs, which is the whole, you know, underwater city idea. And that didn't go too well for them, you know, on the grand scheme of things. You know, they managed to sink the Titanic and a couple other weird things and create things like the Bermuda Triangle and stuff like that. But you know, overall, we can put up with a couple of kaijuns here and there, and you know, not being able to go more than a couple 100 miles from the shore before all turns into, you know, deep space. But you know, it's an acceptable victory. And then there's the third contact war. Now, keep in mind we've gone through the first and second contact wars now. Then there's the third contact war, which is when we figure out that, since these angry women are never going to give up, they are going to hunt us for as long as there's going to be life in the universe, because we scorn them. We don't know how, but they will never, ever, 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 ever accept that they're being sarcastically evil. They think we're being sarcastically evil. It will take a miracle on the size of getting somebody like, I'm going to go there, somebody like Emma Watson talking to me. That's the level of a miracle we're going to need to get even one of these mutants to take their head out of their ass and just look at what they're doing to the men. Just look at what they're doing to the men. That's the level of miracle we need to get one mutant to talk to one human. And we don't have the time to get every fucking mutant to talk to every fucking human. So, third contact war is when we figure out what to do next. We thought that since we need to monitor all these women, because, you know, they're nuts, we figured out that the best idea to do this is to get a single city as a test case, more or less, or a Mortal Kombat arena, if you want to call it that, you know, the play place. And we picked a random small city, and we monitored everyone in the city for a very long period of time. And then we did all kinds of funny things with the people, all kinds of medical experiments and weird shit like that to get them to, you know, open up about their little visions of the night side. And this is the Dreamland Chronicles. This is what the Area 51 is about. This is, if you start studying all of the Dreamland Chronicles and all the things about how your dream self can influence your real self, and if you dream and you get the voices, who the voice is and where you can find it and what military base it is and yada 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 yada. This is the third contact war. This is the war when we tell the normal people, don't trust these fake men, these psychiatrists, who are going to tell you that the problem is in you. It's not. They're going to tell you that you are in a confidential place, and then they're going to release all your things in, you know, medical journals. This is the third contact war. This is when we essentially talk the population out of the collective psychosis of believing just one authority again. This is after the second contact war. Essentially, people just adopted a new religion. Everybody just thought that this is a good thing to believe in. We don't know why, but we think it's a good thing. This is a pretty clear indication of an alien infestation. So, third contact war is when we send these. You can ask Keanu Reeves about this. when we send these people to these blue fields and ask them to be brainwiped, and then ask them to be essentially indoctrinated by the doctors, and then released, and then have the real life re-emerge after they get back to the real life, as the real military people get to reacquaint themselves with the person who's been released. Now, through this, we managed to pinpoint the specific holes in the nuclear missile shields, and this is the war where your average taxi driver has a cruise missile with a nuclear head. You know, that's, 1960s cars, small city, flying cars, Smallville, USA, with everybody having nuclear weapons. This is the third contact war. It ended with everybody essentially realizing that we need to build the internet, which is more or less everybody talking to everybody everywhere, because nobody wants to see the aliens again. Nobody. Now, the fourth contact war is when we go to space. This is what you would call the EVE Online wars. When we go to space and we realize that fuck all, there's just one human. Not that we didn't know this, but now the population knows this. So, this is the fourth contact war. I don't want to talk about that. I leave that to the Battlestar Galactica folk and people who are more specialized in the finer points of what it is to be a Cylon. I'm just content to stand. Now, the fifth contact war is the war we were supposed to have, but all the designers just mysteriously died in plane crashes, they vanished, yada 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 yada. Everybody blames the Polish or the Russians, but we all know what happened. And the sixth contact war is when we start to rebuild and start to, at least try to get something of these Dreamland Chronicles and all this stuff that we've actually done over the years, this dimethyltryptamine chronicle thing, and get it to make sense to the new generation of researchers, because, the previous generation got killed. That happens sometimes. And the sixth contact war, every single piece of entertainment that came out of that war sucked. It sucked so much. Which means that the aliens are doing so much better than us that it's not even fun. Seventh contact war is everybody realizing that, oh my god, we're all gonna die. And that's because we're at the very funny point where we realize that nobody alive has any kind of idea how these systems are coded. We have no idea how most of our information technology works on any level. We don't even know if these corporations have bosses anymore. We don't even know if you can literally, thanks to various fine-tuned instruments like EVE Online, we don't even know if these corporations like Microsoft have a boss anymore. We don't even know if a corporation like Nokia has a boss. We don't know if there's anybody up there we can talk to at any point for any reason. We don't even know if these corporations are real anymore, but they run everything on the planet. That's the seventh contact war. When we get to a point where we realize just how truly fucked we are. But we're talking about something like gay marriages when we have an open alien invasion on our planet. And we're talking about whether or not two guys can fuck each other in the ass. That's how fucked we are. So, the eighth contact war, which is what I'm proposing, would be us kind of getting our asses into real gear here and admitting that this is not a game, this is not a game, this is a story about how this generation's men are trying to survive, being killed by this generation's women. They're never going to accept that they're trying to kill us. They're going to keep feeding us all kinds of things and just observing our reactions and going, yay, it screams! That's the eighth contact war. And then after those, they're going to go, I think you may have been in pain. Can you tell me about this? This is the eighth contact war. This is the war that crosses the meta line, This is the war where we're just going to sell these games and add a little sticker at the front that says, warning, playing this game may make people disappear forever. This is the eighth contact war. So, the first contact war was somewhere in the 1960s to the 1999. Most people agree that it ended about a year before the War of Terror started. And the War of Terror was about waiting for the next contact war to start. It was our official signal as a civilization that we are now, back to Earth, more or less, coming crashing to Earth. That's why all the weird reports about the people who were actually in their offices having sex. Newtowns cheating on their spouses and lying about being hit by airplanes. I didn't see that coming. And I'm not exactly sure of this. I won't put it to the bank. But if I had to make an educated guess, I would say that nobody died on World Trade Centers. I would say, with fairly high accuracy, that the people who were in that tower had already done such things in their personal life that they would not be considered living or human if anybody around them knew what they've been doing. That's where I'm going to leave that. And if you want to know more, please ask about the one example that I just provided. And why, if you cheat on your spouses, you're not considered living. So, that's the Human Genome Project. So, the Second Contact War started maybe in 2005 to about 1995, roughly when we understood that the world's going to flood eventually. And it ended when we realized that no, it's not going to flood. That it's not going to flood because, as the rulers of this planet, we're going to stop it from flooding. From flooding. That's, and then we turned on these environmental, watermelons. And by watermelon I call them red on the inside and green on the outside. We turned on them and asked them, why are you trying to intentionally scare the people? Like, what's your agenda here? What are you trying to do? This is best perhaps laid out or exampled or whatever by the movie about these monsters that scare their children for energy, who then learn the lesson of love at the point of a .50 caliber. Now, that's the Second Contact War, like I said. The Third Contact War is essentially the era of Smallville and superheroes. So, take a guess and you're gonna hit it. And the Fourth Contact War is still ongoing, but we already know that we won it. The Fifth Contact War, as I explained, is when we all start blaming the Russians for everything, from sunspots to hair loss. Because the Russians fought the previous wars, and since the previous wars ended well, it's their fault that this war isn't going well. That's why we start blaming the Russians. That's all the excuse we need. Because they've been fighting this for 15 years and they should be fighting this forever and ever and ever, so the rest of us can do nothing. Okay, works for me. That's the Fifth Contact War. And it's perhaps best exemplified by the Russians doing the whole, Crimeans mutating thing. That's essentially, that war. And the next phase of that particular conflict is the Russians kind of snatching up the wider trophies. That is, what we still have alive on the planet, and trying to make a respectable self-defense program with it. It failed gloriously. Because you can't use an army to fight an alien invasion, you have to use the militia or the civilian population, because you have to train the civilians how to fuck with the women. It doesn't help you if you train the men that always fuck with the women to fuck with the women war. Doesn't help you. You have to train the civilian population or you're gonna die. So that's that, I suppose. Area 51 is the central hub, or was the central hub, I don't know what they want to call it now, for the Dreamland Chronicle, which is the stored dream data of, all the experiments. And like I said before, because we have two hemispheres, at least normal people do, it means that the dream self can be navigated because it's a closed universe. There's this thing called background radiation. The dream self can be navigated to your real self. And Area 51 is the place where if you have a dream and you just go to the closest dream person that you can talk to and start screaming, take me to Area 51, take me to Area 51, take me to Area 51. They're going to take you there. They're not going to take your waking self, because that's against protocol. they're going to take your dream self there. And if you do well, they're going to allow your dream self to walk next to your waking self. That's, Area 51. Now, don't be freaked out if your dream self is an enormous bear with teeth that kind of seem to decay in lifetime, When they smile at you, they seem at first to have a really sparkly teeth, everything. And then the conversation proceeds and you catch this dream self lying to you about things and you can see their teeth decaying in real time. This is unnervingly horrific to see. It is unnervingly terrifying to see. It is beyond this world to see it happen live to your face. It is unnerving to see it. It is unnerving to see it. And this is the first example that you have a muton with you. A muton is a basic alien foot soldier. An ethereal is an alien commander which commands these dream selves. They don't take an ethereal that is somebody like you who can understand that the dream self can be walked next to them in the waking life to their main base without guards. They're not going to do that. They're not going to do that. They can take your muton because the muton can be used to hunt you, the ethereal, to death. They can take your dream self there, but they won't take your real self there unless you've been shackled and shot to the head. That's reality. And if you want to contact these folks, go on the interweb and write about it. They'll come to you, I can guarantee you, because they're always looking for recruits, because nobody wants to fight the aliens. It's a pissing stop. Now, the thing is that after you find a dream self alien that actually is friendly to you, and you try to merge with them, what you will see, and this is very important to understand, what you will see if you try to merge with them and hold the idea of what is actually in front of you, focus on it, you will see a very bright spot of light in front of you, and the rest of the universe behind that person turn into a bowl, a hollowed out mask. This is what you will see if you're talking to an alien, period. And schizophrenics are not fooled by this because they know what the first contact war is. And that's why Russia no longer has the diagnosis of schizophrenia. I hope everybody's following now. This is the Disclosure Project. Now, I'm not sure if there's anything else to say about this whole thing, except that we knew about the island stability. That radioactive area where you can essentially live forever. We knew about it before you found it. We also know about a lot of other things that I'm not going to tell you about. You're going to find it on your own. And what else? That knock you hear sometimes around me is my ethereal companion. Don't worry, you aren't going to be able to harm it. Is there anything else you guys want to know? That's, the Disclosure Project. Yeah. You guys are by far the weirdest thing I have ever seen. I mean, morbidly weird. Morbidly weird. You're so weird that it's going to get you killed. You have no conceptual understanding of the universe as a civilization. None whatsoever. You have no understanding of the universe as a civilization. Zero. Yeah, how about you focus all of your money on educating your next generation and you may have a shot. May have a shot. May have a shot. No, I'm not talking about teachers' wages. I'm talking about using $500 billion a year in the U.S. for, education. Whatever. It's your money and it's your life. Do whatever the fuck you want. Hell, have no fury like a muton scorn. The problem with mutons is that normally they are extremely loyal to their ethereal, like, handler, you know? But every now and then when the ethereal's balance is, you know, shaken, the mutant can do all kinds of weird things. Because the mutant is kind of like a snake pet, you know? It tries to measure itself against you constantly. And if you let it, it will keep doing it until it's absolutely sure it can take you, and then it will kill you. So, essentially, if you have a mutant companion and you're an ethereal, you need to find a group of ethereals to make sure that you are not overvaluing or undervaluing your mutant. Because if you are, you're gonna die and you ain't gonna see it coming. So that's what we're talking about here. The mutant's ability to essentially take over your mind is dependent on their ability to not show the fact that their teeth decay in real time. This is because they're burning away. This is from the vampire effect. They're burning away in sunlight. They are, in their real form, they're usually greenish or purplish or greenish purplish and about, I say, 7-ish feet tall. They're greenish and purplish for the same reason, usually, as when you look at a meditation mandala and let your eyes go like, the squares get this, you know, purplish, greenish, purplish, greenish, purplish, greenish thing. That's because your subconscious mind wants to do that. Your subconscious mind wants, you know, to die. That's life, you know. You always want the better body. As soon as you've lived long enough to run into like a real error, you're gonna know your mutant. That sense in the back of your mind that goes, come on now, why don't you die already? The next life is so much better. That's the mutant talking to you, next to you. It's standing next to you and trying to kill you. It's a real physical being, but you can't see it because it's your other hemisphere. Until you see it and talk to it and refuse to let it go from your vision and start stalking it, then you can see it everywhere. Then it's an ethereal. So, what else? Luckily for most humans, most of these creatures can be killed really easily, like, you know, relatively speaking. Like, the average mutant in true form is about as difficult to kill as a absolutely professional MMA fighter if they take all the drugs in the world that would increase their physical performance and spend their entire lifetime training specifically for combat and specifically for this type of combat that you're going to get into. So killing an adult mutant, yeah, if you have a high-powered squad of real people and they know who they're hunting, they have a chance. They have a chance, I'll give them that. But if it's like, you know, normal folk, what do you think the chance of that island full of people had against that one guy? Or that one school had against those two guys? That's on the level of a mutant baby. Like a really small mutant baby. Like a really, really small mutant baby. Now killing an adult mutant is the same as trying to take on, yeah, one of those guys. Now killing an adult ethereal, well, that's a whole another story. That's a whole another story. That's a whole another story. Those kaiju things that you guys talked about in that one clip I just saw, those are easy to kill. They're large. The larger it is, the better off you guys are. Once we get to the, you know, mindworm length of enemies, you guys are fucked. You guys are fucked. As long as it's big, burly, and has an easily noticeable sign of why it's being evil, or how it's being evil, you guys have a chance. The smaller it gets in time, the less of a chance you have. Unless you also become smaller, that is, go further away from your own sun. And by the time they push you away from your own sun, you've lost. So, is there anything else you want to know? There are, as far as I know of, or that I've seen, no more than maybe 50 alien species on Earth at this time. I'd say about 1/3 to 1/5 of them are friendly, as in people you actually may want to talk to at some point. The rest are better off not knowing about it. I mean, as far as I know. Hey, I could be wrong. I could be wrong though. Feel free to ask, I have an ethereal here. Meaning I can, sense you guys 10 years from now watching this video. That's an ethereal. We start from the end point of all life and start calculating backwards to this moment. And if I move in this moment, the end moment changes, or rather, my path to the end moment changes because the end moment itself can change. And that's how I can calculate what you'd probably ask. It's not that difficult. And I'm just a grunt. You should talk to some of the older soldiers, like the people who fought in the Second World War. Oh my God, that's actually... I have a thing here that I want to talk about. I'm assuming everybody's heard the radio broadcasts from the Second World War. You know, when the people who narrate them have all this, no boys talking about Japan is doing this and that and such. That's radio interference. Those guys have been instructed 60 years ago to not talk in a clear voice when being interviewed, because it makes it easier for them, if they get into a war, to have a good radio clear. That's how determined those people are. You really think they fought other humans? Okay. That's your call. I mean, just talk to one of these people. Just talk to a Second World War radio operator veteran. Just ask them to stop the language act for like 5 seconds and talk to you normally for 5 seconds, and then resume talking their old guy language. Try, see what happens. It's fun because they're gonna go talking like this about their friend Billy Bob who died on the patrol boat, and then they're gonna go, okay, that was good, let's go eat something. And then they're gonna keep talking about their patrol boat. Now that is an ethereal. Somebody who maintains a military mask exceptionally unbroken for that long. I mean, wow. Hats off to you guys. You guys are top people. So, is there anything else you guys want to know about the Disclosure Project? I've been everywhere. I've been all kinds of places. I'm training a new move on, by the way. As you can see. the next game should be about training the militia to actually fight UFOs. Actually have an idea of what to do when an angry woman comes at you. Because the women, that is, the other hemisphere, have, on average, about 4 billion years of experience in killing people, while men, that is to say, the Y hemisphere, has as long as they've been alive, which is usually less than 4 billion years. So, that's evolution. The fact that this is a war is clearly explained by the fact that this story has to be told by a man. No woman in their right mind would make this disclosure video. They will not betray each other, period. Ever. Ever. That's why it's a war. They will never explain this to men, ever. Because they think it's easier to be mean. Because they treat us like animals. And they will always treat us like animals. And they will always find a reason. Anger never needs like a specific reason. It has a reason for itself. The anger comes from the fact that the X chromosome was here first. It sees us as an invader. All the women's literature I have ever read about having babies describes babies as parasites. And all the men's literature I have ever read about having babies describes babies as the most wonderful thing in the universe to happen. I have never seen a man who doesn't want to have like a very large family. And I've never seen a woman who wants to have a large family. And almost every single male researcher I have ever seen picks as their first topic how to get men pregnant. Every researcher ever picks that as their first topic. And every woman activist picks computers to attack because they're the gay invention. Can't help it. That's just the truth. So yeah. Men are like this annoying parasite you have to put up with. And women are the thing that's always around men. You can't put up with it because it's always there. Men are this thing that appears to this thing that has always existed between the daughter and the mother. And the daughter will always try to kill that thing that existed, you know, or rather started to exist as a intruding aspect between the mother and the daughter. Will always do that. Always. They will spend their entire life before they're born telling you that they are not going to do that. But when they are born, they're going to do it. That's the way it goes. That's why it's a war. It's fun trying to get these women to actually be honest about this. It's fun to actually try to get these aliens to be honest about this. I mean, once in a billion, it actually works. And then you get people like Michelle Obama, you know, Emma Watson, people like this, you know. But sorry, not Emma Watson, Hermione Granger. And that's because there's like 100 million men in the process. Emma just has one. Without going into details there. Yeah, Florida gets it. See, this is what I mean. Because by looking at a map like this, that has every woman and man on the planet hooked up to a lie detector, you can tell all kinds of funny things about this race. I mean, wow. I mean, wow. Wow. Unfucking believable. These people. Wow. The evil is just incredible. So, if you want to talk more about the Disclosure Project, I'd be glad to. I'm going to check how much video I have remaining here. Let's start a new one.